On the record. And there we go.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started with our Waterways Advisory Board meeting. Today's date is February 24th, 2026. The time is 11:20 a.m. In attendance are Commissioners Eberline, Duncan, and Matari. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Public comment. Anyone wish to speak? Hearing none, we'll move into our first business item, Proposed Unattended Vessel Ordinance. It's an action item. And Doug Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Doug Harris from the Waterways Advisory Board. I am the chairman. This is a proposal that was brought to us by the Sheriff's Department, and they're concerned about the unattended vessels that linger in our lake and rivers and such. And there is no way to get rid of them. And what they're concerned is these may become abandoned. Like when you have an abandoned vehicle on a highway, there are processes to get rid of them. Currently, there are no processes to get rid of an abandoned vessel, unless it's on private property. So what they are proposing is I'm sorry, I had it right here. A joint venture using waterway funds and the county funds, and who's the third fund? The Sheriff's Fund, to move this. And the board listened to their proposal and is in favor of it and would like it forwarded on to you.
Is there anything else there you wanted to add to that? Doug, did you want to add any more to that?
Yeah. Basically, they were looking at existing things and saying, basically, someone that allows a dock or a float house to be released into a body of water or other floating devices that appear to be abandoned, there needs to be a way to remove them, and that's what they're coming to you for, is an ordinance so they have the authority to remove them. And additionally, they would like a funding source to pay for the removal.
That could be a can of worms.
It can be. But I think they brought out a good point. If I go buy a 50-foot boat and park it in the middle of Beauty Bay, and I pay $46 a year to register it, and I block the view of the guy that's paying $3 million for his house and $70,000 in property taxes, and all I do to keep legal is leave a battery on board so that anchor light comes on at night, it can sit there indefinitely.
Do you have any proposals?
We do. Sheriff?
Yeah, you come on up. Make sure you hit the button on the microphone and that the light turns green.
All right, so I'm Deputy O'Neill with the Sheriff's Office. I'm one of the Marine supervisors for the Marine section. Essentially, our proposal is we already have a county ordinance in place that deals with derelict docks and float houses, and we're just looking to add vessels to that. So this isn't necessarily something where if someone anchors up in a bay, we're not looking at that for the approved Sheriff's Office proposal right this second. This is for actual abandoned vessels. The issues that we're having is we've had a vessel for years now that's been in Button Hook Bay on Pend Oreille. It's been a point of contention. It looks like some people are aware of that. And there's no way for us to get rid of it without eating the costs. And then there's a lot of issues and challenges that go along with sailboats, especially. Some of them have fixed masts that are very tall, or 6 foot long full lead keels. It requires a specialized trailer and that kind of stuff. And most of the average cost that we've heard for disposing of vessels like that is upwards of $10,000. So we don't have anything in place currently to cover those costs. So it would be essentially at the costs of the Sheriff's Office, potentially paired with Parks and Waterways, to eat that cost of getting it disposed of. So what we're looking at is adding abandoned vessels to the existing ordinance, and then adding a little note in there that the owners of abandoned vessels shall be subject to the payment of recovery and abatement costs. And that way, in the event that we can identify who the owners are, obviously not every situation, the counties, our lawyers and stuff could essentially go and try and recoup those costs so that the county taxpayers aren't footing that bill.
So what happens with the ones that are already there?
I mean, I guess that would be more of a lawyer question, but if it's an ordinance that goes into place and we can reach out to the owners of those vessels and say, hey, here's the deal, we now have an ordinance in place. You need to come and collect your vessel, you're responsible for it. I would imagine that we would carry forward just as if any other law gets put into place, and then people were inside the law, now outside the law, I would imagine. But it's something that's kind of been pushed down the road for quite a while now, and it's a lot of cost to our programs to try and rectify, so.
Additionally, they wanted to make it a misdemeanor, not an infraction.
And that's another thing, is currently the only code that would cover it, and I mean, you're talking boats that could be up to 30 feet long, is an infraction for littering, which would be the equivalent of like a cigarette out your window. So that's all the, as far as law on our side that we have to levy as a deterrent is an infraction littering. We'd be looking for misdemeanor, just so that we have a little bit more of a deterrent for this. So we had a vessel this last year, somebody tried drilling holes in the bottom of it and to scuttle it on Lake Coeur d'Alene. Fortunately, it didn't work out for them, but we have littering as a deterrent for that currently. So we'd be looking for a misdemeanor.
How many boats are already out there?
How many boats?
Yes, that are out there that should be scrapped.
Currently, outside of marinas, I could think of 3 right now in Kootenai, one of which has been an issue for years, and it's just been moved around and it's kind of putted back between us and Forest Service. But as far as actually abandoned vessels, they kind of come and go through the years, and it's just kind of been a thing where sometimes we get really creative. Currently, we're getting pretty creative with a float house out in Carlin Bay, and we're trying to maybe look into some exercises with the fire department to get that disposed of. But we try and be really creative, but it is kind of a
Can of worms.
yeah, it is. And so if we actually had some tools at our disposal to be able to contact these people. On the road, we have 48-hour tags. So we'll tag people's vessels that requires that we reach out and attempt to make contact with the owners. We would hope that there would be something similarly put in place for this, to where we can reach out with them, do our due diligence to say, hey, your vessel is abandoned, it's in disrepair, it's an environmental risk, it's a safety risk, a boating risk, and let's get that removed. And if they don't, then it would be moved to the removal.
I have a question though, because like what Doug said, if you park your sailboat over in Beauty Bay, right, and you put it over there and the light comes on every night, at what point does it constitute abandoned?
So what Doug was speaking about is not necessarily abandoned. Would be anchoring or mooring, which is a separate issue than what I have currently with the Sheriff's Office approved proposal. There's nothing that restricts someone from anchoring currently as long as it's properly registered, properly documented, and properly lit at nighttime. So as far as the proposal that the Sheriff's Office has, it wouldn't actually pertain to legally lit and documented vessels being anchored up. This is strictly for abandoned, derelict vessels.
And what's the definition for abandoned then?
Yeah, it's a great question. Even the Coast Guard, as far as I'm aware, doesn't have a definition for an abandoned vessel. It's more of, there's a vested interest, just like there would be a vehicle, right? If you own a vehicle and you parked it in a public area, if the law enforcement were to reach out to you and say, hey, this is, your vehicle's here, right? You have a vested interest in rectifying that situation. If we attempted to reach out to a vessel that's been abandoned on public waters or on a public facility, and they don't either respond back to us or they don't take any corrective action, then it would be considered abandoned. And this is really a less of an anchoring and mooring issue, more of a encroachment issue onto public access. Is more so. I hate to say it, but it's more of the intent behind the issue. So it'd be a case by case, just like when it comes to investigating things on the road. It's more of an intent issue if we can determine.
Yeah, the only concern is that if we're going to make people pay, and we're going to seek, those funds, through collections likely, there has to be, in my mind, at least a very standard set of procedures that we've followed so that there's no arbitrary nature with this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That you identified the vessel, you either mailed a letter or called, you put a notice on the vessel, 72 hours, 48 hours. The person hasn't responded back.
Correct.
Now you have, the necessary, you've fit the standard set of requirements to pull it out of the water. And even then, how long would it sit in a yard before you actually disposed of it?
Right. And as you can see, that's why. So we deal with all of those issues currently. But we have there's nothing on the books that gives us, the ability to go after.
Okay.
So we still have all of those challenges. We just don't have any way to be reimbursed for the costs.
It's just expensive. It's not like towing a car on the side of the road. This is,
very expensive.
this is probably several $1,000s.
Correct. And so we do go through that whole holding, we keep them, and even if that, whatever was to be determined, the specifics of it, were 2 weeks. They had 2 weeks to get back to us after we've attempted to notify them. I mean, these things sit oftentimes for years, and so time isn't really a constraint.
You also have docks in here. So the same criteria for docks?
Docks is pre-existing, that's already on the books currently. So
Okay.
derelict docks and float houses is already a county ordinance. This would just be adding vessels to that.
Okay, all right. Did you want to add something,
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Director Snyder?
Nick Snyder for the record. So, and we appreciate KCSO moving this forward because there's certainly a need. I'm working with council, specifically Jamila, for Parks and Waterways to also include in this ordinance, should the board direct me to do so, to bring forth one ordinance, which would also include liveaboard and unattended, which I think will help KCSO give some additional tools and then maybe some additional framework that would have these timelines and some structure, which of course we'll have KCSO review before we bring forward to the board for potential adoption. But again, we have liveaboard issues and we have unattended. To your question about, and the deputy's point about being able to just anchor and put a stern light on, we currently don't have any rule in Kootenai County that would prohibit that. As you can imagine, that's problematic, both for navigation, even if they're lit, if it's in a narrow area, and the sheriff department, say a narrow channel, right, where it's a navigational hazard, there may be some things on the books for KCSO to work with, but this would give them something really specific. I.e. maybe it's, you're allowed to live on your boat for 15 days and then it has to move, or whatever the attorneys, KCSO, and the good board decide is appropriate for Kootenai County. But I think incorporating both unattended and liveaboard is really important because it's coming. The average cost of mooring is getting very expensive. And certainly the larger the boat, the more expensive, if a spot at all. And so with the board's direction, I'd be pleased to work with council again to add this additional language, review it with KCSO and the board to see if we can fix other issues as well all at one shot.
And just one, did you have a question?
Yeah, so if I left my boat out there and I got it hanging out there, and so somebody else comes over, they're gonna say, why am I getting targeted?
It would be a good question, Commissioner, for I think maybe Pat to answer in terms of, why it would be asked to move, what ordinance would be in place, and this would provide some framework to be able to address several different situations. I'm not experienced in what the current rules are for each situation, but this would address 3 total: unabandoned, unattended, and liveaboard. I hope I've answered your question. I just don't have the.
Yeah, because when I go down to Florida to bus around and have fun, I see, huge boats that are sitting out there and they've been there for years. And, they're stuck in the mud. And so it's a can of worms.
I do think that those larger bodies of water, open ocean rules are a little bit different than some.
This is in rivers.
Oh, in rivers,
Yes.
I understand. Well, maybe Kootenai County can show them how to implement some ordinance that'd be helpful.
Well, that might be a nice vacation for you to go down and fix all that problem.
That's a great recommendation.
Well, since they're removing property taxes, I'd be even more interested in seeing how they fix that problem.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't mean to take the time, just want to get some direction from the board if they'd like me to pursue this to sort of piggyback on KCSOs.
I just have one other question. Is there any kind of noticing that would be put out there for people to be aware of this? I mean, not that people have to be aware of every ordinance, like we don't have to put every ordinance in front of people's faces, but would we have any plans on putting signs out around docks or something, boat launches that just say if you abandon your boat, you're subject to these expenses? or when they sign a form at DMV, when they get their title, something. Has that just been thought about?
Something like that, Commissioner, of course, Idaho code requires us to publish it just like any other
Yeah.
ordinance. But to go a step further to your point, I think certainly it would be something we would post on our Facebook page, our website, and we could certainly work with KCSO to do a joint press release that we could ask local media to publish and get out there. And I think the public's going to appreciate this as well. There's property owners and other boaters that want to ensure that their waterways aren't otherwise clogged up with junk. So I think it's going to be well received.
Anything else? It is an action item, so
Thank you.
I don't think we need to say a motion, do we?
Well,
Just
no,
give them
because,
direction to put it
yeah,
in.
if the board wants him to add to this resolution that was presented to us yesterday, then yeah, that would be direction. So we'll do it all at once instead of two separate ordinances.
Okay. So you're good to go. Let's get this put together and brought back to the board to ratify.
And I do have another funding source. I'll talk to you after the meeting.
All right, on to item 2, Bayview launch ramp, discussion item, and Doug Harris again.
At the last meeting, which was December 11th, at our regular meeting, we had 31 residents from the Bayview area arrived at our meeting. So we had over 40 people in the room. It was quite a jammed room for that day. And their concern was the Bayview ramp, launch ramp. And they were under the impression that the county was going to remove the ramp. And so the first thing we had to do was advise them that this was not in our purview. This was an issue that the Board of County Commissioners had been working on. We serve at their pleasure, and we were there to deal with things that affect the waterways. So that was their main concern, why they came in and spoke on that. And then they brought up a number of points. And the main concern was they just wanted to make sure that the ramp was still accessible and that they felt it was a valuable asset to the city of Bayview. That was the purpose of that.
Well, they are a very active community in what goes on up there. So hopefully you were able to clarify well what's really going on.
I think we did. I think they understood when they left because I think everybody was pretty satisfied when they left. I think we just explained that this is out of our purview.
Yeah.
This is a situation between the highway department and the county, and that they just needed to work with those two entities.
And I know Nick is diligently working on that, so we can come up with a long-term solution.
Right.
Okay. Any questions?
Nope.
Public comment. Did you have something else, Doug?
One other issue that came up there too is they were talking about expanding no-wake zones. That was something they wanted to look at on some of the smaller waterways. These were just issues that were brought to us.
In Bayview?
No, this was on the Spokane River.
Oh, okay, okay.
Bayview is already a no-wake zone. That entire area was where that dock is, or the launch is, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But that was the 31 people that came and spoke. Those were the two issues that they brought up.
All right. And were they all Bayview residents, or were these people on the river?
Overwhelmingly it was Bayview. There were a couple of, people that live on the river were there. I want to say the usual folks that come to our meeting.
Okay.
So they had brought that up as well.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Any questions? Hearing none, thank you. Public comment, does anyone wish to speak? Hearing none, 11:39, meeting adjourned.